You are listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my regular weekly guests, and we are all here to share the research, the science, and the strategies, as well as some of the fun, to help you to create a more active life. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Creating Active Lives. As you know, the aim of this podcast is to provide inspiration, information, and insight into active lives. And I have to say, today's guest, Vicki Morrison, is definitely inspiring. Vicki's just the living embodiment of an active life. But more importantly, she's just such an absolute positive role model for how, as you get older, that activity is so important as part of your life. And it's never, ever too late to start having an active life. We're both mid-60s, so we're at that sort of age where a lot of people are thinking about slowing down, but actually in my case slightly, but Vicki's case definitely, she's actually speeding up, and it is quite an incredible conversation this is going to be. So Vicki, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Vicki. I'm 64 years old and I live in New Zealand, which I am very, very blessed to live here. Not that I can say I haven't travelled all around the world and loved every place I have been and the opportunities that I've had. And as I was saying to Sarah earlier, as I'm getting older and older, I'm just realising there's just so many more opportunities out there for women our age. And when I was in my 50s and my life took a real nosedive, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm old. I'm in my 50s. I'm not going to get a job. I'm done, really. And it was a really horrible, scary thing. And then I sort of decided that I had two choices in life. One was I could wallow in self-pity and feel really sorry for myself. And the other one was I could just get out there and kick life in the butt, and which is exactly what I've done. And I've always been really active, every day I've made an effort to do something active. It's just always been a massive part of my life. And it was probably a big part of my life when I had my children. I have 3 boys, that for my mental health. So every day I used to get out of bed 2 hours before the boys woke up, drive my car into town because we lived in the country, and go for an hour and a half power walk. And when I got home, I actually really enjoyed the kids. But if they used to wake me up, I didn't enjoy it, and it set the precedent for the day. So I had to really discipline myself to get up and do that. And that kind of just cemented where and what I've always done. And to me, I feel really, if I don't go for a walk or a run or a bike ride. And even now, like at 64, every day I do something, whether it's a walk on the beach. I'm very blessed to live at the beach. Or this morning I went to a spin class or a run. And I just wake up every day so grateful that I'm able to do that. And it does take discipline, but it's a big part of my life. It's just like brushing your teeth in the morning, really. And I think it's so important that we don't let age stop us being really, really active.
One of the biggest things for me, and I know anyone who's listened to these episodes before will know that for me, activity that's part of your lifestyle is just so much easier to maintain, isn't it? It's like you said, you've gone for a spin class, but that's out of choice. It's not like I must go to the gym for my activity. It's like, oh, today I fancy doing a spin class. Tomorrow might be a hike or a cycle, as you say. And I think when you've got that range of activities in your life, there's always something that you think, oh yeah, I'm in the mood for that today. I'm in the mood for a walk, or I'm in the mood for a stretch or some yoga. You actually did your first Ironman at 50, which, I mean, an Ironman anyway is an achievement, but to do it around 50 is even more of an achievement. What kind of made you do that?
I saw all these people doing it. I thought, wow, I could do that. And I saw people coming in, like you get a 17-hour cutoff. And I stayed and watched the last ones come in at midnight. And I cried when I watched some of the challenges that people come in. Some of them were limping. Some of them were really overweight. Some of them were just doing it for various reasons. And I thought I could do one of those. I'd never ever done triathlon. So I didn't sort of start off doing a 100-metre swim and a 10K bike ride and a 2K run. I thought I'd go out and do a full Ironman. So that was my 50th birthday present for me. My kids said to me, Mum, most people for their 50th birthdays go on a cruise. You're going to kill yourself doing Ironman. And it was one of the most amazing things I did. And just the support and just knowing that your body can do it. Our bodies can do anything. It's the top 2 inches that will spoil it for us. And we even know ourselves when we're feeling really tired, we think, oh, I'm too tired to do this. But once we actually start doing stuff, we can actually do it. So then, of course, you get a little bit addicted when you get into this multi-sport. And it's huge. It's like, because I worked full time, had 3 kids, and trained for an Ironman, which was 20 hours a week. But then you get addicted to it, you see, and you're so excited when you finish your first one that they offer this good deal to do another one. So you actually sign up and do the one next year. So I actually ended up doing 3 Ironmen in my 50s. But I think it's 3 strikes and I'm out. It's hard work. It's hard work. So, so I've done a few marathons as well. I went over and did the Berlin Marathon with my son, and then I did the New York Marathon COVID, and I'm not a runner. I'm not a natural runner. I'm tall, I'm fairly big boned, and it hurts. But that was a challenge, and in fact next year I've decided I'm going to do the London Marathon. So I always set something that usually is nearly impossible, and that's my challenge. So and that keeps me going. And I mean, I think I'm nuts, but I love it. I love being nuts.
But it's that activity, isn't it? And the good thing about Vicky doing the London Marathon is we actually get to meet for the first time. Because although we've known each other for 2.5, nearly 3 years now from online, we've never actually met. So we are going to meet. So guys, expect another podcast with Vicky, sort of probably not at the finish line when you're actually gasping for breath, but I think we need a catch up on what you're doing. Now, what's really, really inspiring about you is not just that you do all these things now, but it's also that you are really acting as an inspirational role model for the younger generation. So working with children, working with teenagers. I know you're just back from an Outward Bound camp helping people prepare for the Special Olympics. The Special Olympics, if you're not aware, is for people with learning disabilities, Down syndrome and things like that. And it's a really, really important aim for people to be able to get that sort of recognition. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do there.
Yeah, so I've actually done 3 Outward Bound courses myself. I did my first one when I was 19, and employers sent me. And in those days, it was very much like a boot camp. It was very much like army military training. And then when I was 5 years ago, I went on the website and thought, I think I might go and do another Outward Bound course, because it was just a thing. I thought, I think I'm going to go back and do that. So they offered a course which was a rafting one, which was 220 k's from one side of the coast to the other in the South Island in New Zealand. And I thought, wow, this is good. This is going to get me really fit again. It's going to get really, really inspired. But it was actually very, very different. It was more holistic. The whole concept had changed. So I come away from there thinking I didn't actually get that physical challenge that I really wanted. So I thought, I think I might do the Masters Classic, which was a 21-day, which was what I did when I was 19. So I did that, and I was the oldest there. The average age group was they start 27 plus. Well, the average age was 31. So there was 14 of us, and there was 9 between 27 and 31, 2 40-year-olds, a 45-year-old, and me. So at 64 or 63. So that was interesting. It wasn't the physical challenge that got me, it was the mental challenge, because dealing with people that are 27, 28 that know everything. So there's quite a sense of entitlement that comes in this whole new generation. So that was my biggest challenge. But the physical challenge, I was super, super proud of myself, but I didn't really appreciate it until I come home, that I was doing the high ropes with 27-year-olds, and they were all saying, oh my God, Vicki, I could never imagine my parents doing that, and jumping off big cliffs. But I never really looked at it like I'm an inspiration. I just did it because I wanted the physical challenge. So anyway, what this is leading to is, while I was there, they said to me, you're so amazing, would you like to come back and help with some of our adapted programs? And the adapted programs is there's a Parkinson's one, there's 2 Horizon programs, which is the 18 and under, 16 to 18, physically and mentally handicapped, etc., etc. So they rang me, probably a month after I'd finished my Outward Bound course, and asked me if I'd be really keen to assist with their Special Olympian groups. And it was going to kind of coincide a little bit with my Camp America, but I thought, no, it was too good an opportunity to give up. So it was amazing. It really was, like, everyday challenges for these, and they were adults from 19 to 34. You see them, they come, they're all like you and I, but with the mentality of 7-year-olds. And it was sad, a 34-year-old guy who was so kind to everybody sobbed his heart out when he had to sleep outside solo. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart to think the challenges they face. But my cup was so filled with gratitude. And there was a very, very Downs boy there as well. And like up to day 4, we couldn't get him out of bed. He wouldn't eat. He gagged on his food because his mother had said he gagged on his food. By day 7 at Outward Bound, he was the first out of bed in the mornings. He was eating hamburgers and frankfurters and told us he didn't want his mother to meet him at the ferry to take him home. He wanted to do it on his own. So he just grew, and I just can't say enough how overwhelmed I was and humbled by just the attitude of them, and maybe they've got it right.
Yeah, it's give it a go and things, but also it also reinforces just how lucky we are, and how much we've got to be grateful for generally. And I think sometimes we forget that things that we take for granted that we do every single day are actually challenges for others. Whether it's a physical disability, an emotional or mental disability. I've just watched an incredible video of somebody who broke her back hiking, and with a team of people, this is in the States, they got off the top of the tallest mountain in Colorado, and it was just, I was in floods of tears, because you forget that climbing a mountain in Colorado is one of my ambitions, hiking, I should say. But for her, it was just, I never thought I'd be back on top of a mountain, and this team, these people have helped me. And it's the teamwork, isn't it? You're with the Outward Bound, you're part of a team helping these kids to actually
and watching
discover
them
what they
amongst
can
themselves,
do.
like the little boy, the very bad Downs one, the whole rest, because they call it the watch house, they all looked after him. They all looked after each other. If someone was having a meltdown, they all wanted a group hug. Just the love and the camaraderie, it puts a lot of us to shame, Sarah. It really does. And I've just come away from there thinking, oh my God, I think I've found my passion. If I could, as my legacy, if I could do a couple or 2 or 3 courses like that a year and make a difference to these kids and adults' lives, I think I've done my job in life. It was amazing. It's just taken me all these years to find something that I've absolutely got an amazing passion for. So, and Outward Bound too, because it's very physical, and they did all the same stuff as the mainstream. They got up in the morning, 5:45 in the morning. They did PT. It was physical training. They did their 3K run. They jumped in the cold sea, and this was like freezing cold. It was -2 degrees. Jumped in the cold sea. They had a cold shower. We get them all ready for breakfast, and they're into the day. A couple of them got tired and had to have a little afternoon nap. But the loveliest thing too was, which makes me heart sing, was when they went to bed at night, we read them nursery rhyme stories like Jack and the Beanstalk, Beauty and the Beast, and they all lay in their bed in their jammers listening to bedtime stories. It kind of just made me feel, I don't know, amazing. It was like, and when they sort of, the instructors said, we read them a story every night, I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding. But they did, and they loved it, and they just mellowed off to sleep with a bedtime story.
And it's something that, like I've got grandchildren and I love reading them bedtime stories and they love it. And some of them I can tell they're choosing books that they know I love rather than that they just want, it's that being part
Yeah.
of a group, isn't it? And having that lovely sense of belonging, I think, as well. And then, of course, you're not that long back from a Camp America.
Oh, well,
so
that was
from New Zealand to
that. I mean, that
America.
was
So
another
that's kind of
very
a whole other
impulsive Vicki Morrison thing to
activity.
do. Like the friend that I actually did Outward Bound with the rafting course, she gave me a call about 4 or 5 months ago, and she said, "Vicki, you're not keen to go to Camp America, are you? As a director of the horse riding program?" I said, "Me going there?" I said, "I'll be like grandma." And they said, "No." She said, it's probably what they need. They need somebody a little bit more mature. And so I just flippantly said, as I do, "Oh, yeah, sounds good to me. I'll escape New Zealand for the winter and go to an American summer." Next thing you know, they're calling me, had a video chat with them, and yeah, I'm on a plane to America. So I was there for 9 weeks. The first 2 weeks was pre-camp. I was the horse riding director, so I looked after all the horses. We did pre-camp, which we got to experience everything that the children would be experiencing. And these children come in from 17 to 17. They have 3 sessions of 2 weeks. Some of the 170 to 190 children per session. Some of the children stay 1 session, some stay 2, some stay 3. So we had, I think, out of the 180 kids per session, I think we had 60 that stayed for the whole 3 sessions, which is pretty tough for a little 7-year-old. But yeah, so we did that. So we got to experience every facet of what the camp would be about: paddleboarding, kayaking, trampolines, high ropes, lots of crafty things, acting, drama, music. So then the children arrived. So I was actually a little bit of a princess. I didn't have to have a cabin of children, which I don't think, to be honest, would really have coped with, because my day started quite early. I'd start at 5 to look after the horses. So we used to have a B day, H day, and a spare day. And the B day was, they called it virtual day, H day, and then a spare day. So those B and H day, we had children coming in for horse lessons all day. So I probably put through 60 kids a day for lessons. Might have actually been more some days. And so it was pretty tiring, but it was fantastic. And the kids, they didn't look at me like, "Oh my God, she's grandma." I could have had horns in the top of my head. These kids just wanted someone to be nice to them, love them, and give them the best time. And that's what we did. So yeah, it was a pretty awesome experience. And it was a beautiful area because it was a New Hampshire area. So it was probably very English. Lots of lakes and forests, and yeah, it was lovely. Squirrels. I used to have chipmunks at the stables, and yeah, I was pretty blessed. I'm very, very blessed for that opportunity. I'm not too sure I would rush back and do it again. It was hard work. The food was absolutely incredible. I was really dreading the American food, thinking it's going to be fried chicken, hot dogs, pizzas. But they had amazing chefs. We had like wonderful salad bar. We had a pasta bar. We had main, food, smorgasbord. The food was incredible. So luckily enough, I didn't come home looking like I'd been eating pancakes and French fries. But
it just goes to show that, doesn't it? It's often the perception is that that's the type of food, but actually there's an awful lot more on offer. But you've also, as well as doing this, there's another one that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other stuff that you've done. But that's the Spirit of Adventure, which is off-land,
so that's
moving onto the water.
Yeah, so that's basically something that's very New Zealand. I think there's programs fairly similar in America and probably in the UK. So the school kids between 16 and 18, and they take 40 children at a time, and they sail from Auckland to the Great Barrier Reef, which I can't quite tell you how many nautical miles that is, but it's an 8-day voyage, or 10-day voyage, I beg your pardon. So these children all learn how to sail. They do have lots of chores. They do first mate chores. They work in the kitchen or the gallery. They do everything. They help to run the boat. And then on the last day, they run the boat. They run the ship. they run the boat, run the yacht. So yeah, it's
Wow.
and it's interesting watching the kids how they grow with their leadership. So I had 10 children that I had to look after. Of course, I got the 10 worst children. By the end of it, these children were shining. They were like shining stars. You know, one of them in particular, I can remember, didn't want to be there. She'd run away from home. Her parents said, "You're going off to Spirit of Adventure. They'll sort you out." She was very naughty for the first 4 or 5 days, tried to ruin it for everybody else. By the last day, she was sobbing her heart out. She didn't want to leave. All of a sudden, it hit her the wonderful opportunity she'd been given.
Oh,
And having to live in a very, very close confinement with 40 others was quite challenging. And so that was another amazing opportunity. I'm actually going back and doing another course with them in November, and that's a inspirational group, and they will be physically handicapped. So two of the adults that were on my Outward Bound course have actually been selected to go on that as well. So that's going to be quite an exciting reunion for me on there.
again, it just goes to show that, you know, what we tend to think of as a disability isn't always a disability. It's just we need to look for ways around it. We need to look for alternatives. We need to look for other ways of doing things, more creative ways of doing things, because there's very little that people can't do when you really put your mind to it, isn't there? Now, some of the stuff you've done, I know a couple of years ago, you suddenly wandered off in your mini camper van, just said, right, I'm off and I'm going down onto one of the stations to work, which again is quite an adventure. It's saying, right, here we go, off I'm going to sort of work.
Yes, I went down and did a horse trek. And while I was there, I ended up, no, that was another trip. That's right. This was someone out of the blue rang me and she said, "You don't want to go right down the very bottom of the South Island and work for a shearers gang." It was a big sheep station, and his wife had left him and he was desperate because it was mustering, it was shearing and whatever. And I thought, yeah, I'll travel 2,000 kilometres and go and work for 2 weeks. And it was the most beautiful part of New Zealand. It was right down the very bottom. And, so I went and did that I'd ended up staying a month. And that was another area I had never seen in New Zealand and another opportunity. And I just met some of the most neatest people. But prior to that, I'd actually worked in Australia on very, very remote cattle stations. And that was something that came out of the blue. When my marriage broke up, I was a little bit broken biscuits and was a bit lost. And a friend of mine, just out of the blue, messaged me and she said, "You don't want to go and work on a cattle station in Australia, do you? It's the most remotest cattle station. There's no cell phone. They have a satellite phone. It is remote." And I thought, what a neat place to go and lick my wounds. So I had 3 plane trips and then they picked me up in the cattle station plane, dropped me in the middle of this desert, and I looked around and I thought, holy heck, what have I done? It was an amazing opportunity. Nobody knew anybody's surnames. I think a lot of people it's just totally different lifestyle. So I went up there as the cook. So I stayed up there for 6 months and it was fantastic. It really was. Just I'd wake up in the morning, there'd be kangaroos in my garden, there'd be snakes in my washing machine, there'd be spiders falling out of my roof. But
oh no!
And I remember looking out the window one day and I was taking a photo and thinking, this is the most amazing sunrise, but it wasn't. The paddock beside us was on fire. So, of course, we had a massive big bushfire.
Oh,
no. I remember sending a photo to one of my kids and I said, oh, my God, I said, the paddock, my house paddock's on fire. And Sam said, Mum, grab your passport and get out of there. But, it was just such a bizarre time. But, just once again, I just met some of the best people and all those, I've been so lucky that all these opportunities have come my way. And then the next year, another friend that I knew, actually from the UK, had a friend that had a horse stud in France, and they were looking for a cook for 3 months. So off I travelled to France for 3 months. And, so I had 4 Great Danes that I used to walk every morning at 60 kilos each. And, so I had been really, and always I've kept myself running or walking. Every job I've had, every day I've made sure that's kind of my sanity saviour too. Just especially if you start work really early in a cattle station, which I used to at 4 o'clock in the morning, because a lot of them come and have breakfast, then they disappear for the day. So I always made sure after breakfast I'll just get out and go for a 2-hour walk, and it's just my sanity saviour. And plus, when you're working in the kitchen all day picking up food, it's quite nice to go for a walk. So
Yeah. But you just sort of said there, you've been really lucky with opportunities. I think opportunities are there all the time. I think it's having an open mind, isn't it? Especially as you get older, I think we tend to think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be slowing down. I should be X, Y, and Z. But I think the opportunities are always there. We've just got to look for them. We've got to be open to them, and we've got to take them. It isn't just, oh, I'd love to do something like that. It's actually,
it's being open-minded too, Sarah. I think it's also sometimes being a little bit impulsive. I sometimes overwhelm myself. I mean, we have our mutual lovely friend Lynn, and I did actually go and have a little chat to Lynn actually at the beginning of this year, because I felt I was overwhelming myself with everything I was doing. And it was, people were starting to make me feel a little bit guilty that, oh, so where are you off to now? Oh, so what are you doing now? And I was starting to feel a little bit guilty. And even my mother said to me, oh, well, you're not going to be like your mother and have to work till you're 72. And I said to Mum, but you never had to work till you're 72. That was your choice. My choice in life now is I'm not going to be able to do this forever. So, and I'm, I'll be 65 next year. And I think I've probably got 10 good years left of me to do this sort of fun. Then maybe I will sit and knit, maybe not. But I don't want to be one of those old people travelling with my Zimmer frame. That would drive me nuts. And that's not, to me, what my life's about. So if I go out screaming and yelling in a purple Charger with orange hair, barefooted and worn to the ground, I'll be happy, I think.
Yeah. And it's like I say, isn't it? The more if you start to slow down, you get on a downward trajectory. Whereas, you're saying you might have 10, 15 years doing this sort of activity, but actually you're not going to be sitting around knitting. If you are, it'll be after a hike up a hill. There will still be things that you do. I know, was it last year you went on the Torah coastal walk in New Zealand, which is with Kristen and Renee, who are mutual friends of ours. But that's not a walk in the park. It's several days, and it's quite challenging. And it may well be that maybe you don't go to the States, you don't go to the UK to do some of these very, very active experiences, but you'll still be doing them because that's part of who you are. And I think this is where activity, once it becomes who we are, it becomes part of our DNA, then we look for opportunities to be active. We don't wait for them to come to us. We look for them.
I just think it's really important to keep moving. I mean, I live in a fairly nice little beach town, and after COVID, a lot of the city people moved to their beach houses permanently. And I have watched them in the last 3 years get dodderier and dodderier. And these are couples in their 60s who have come from corporate jobs. They get up in the morning and they'll take their car to the coffee shop and have a coffee and a scone. Then they come home. And I've watched them get slower and slower. And I find that quite sad, because we live on a beautiful beach where they could walk 11 Ks a day or even 5 Ks, but they choose to take the car into town and have a coffee. And I think we do have to keep using it. If we don't use it, we lose it. And the healthier you are, the better your attitude is. I think I've got a really good attitude in life, and I'm sure 90% of that is because I'm fit and I'm absolutely grateful for my life, and I'm grateful for my good health. And I just think it's so important to keep yourself fit and active, because it's brain food.
Yeah, totally. And the more activity you do at whatever level, the more it has an impact. And I think, for a lot of people, being active starts off as it's a choice, but after a while it becomes a habit, and it's kind of like you don't have a choice. like I say, it's just part of who you are. It's like for me, I get up around 5ish every morning. By the time I sit down for my work day at 8, I've walked the dog, I've done all my chores in the house, I've done so much by the time I sit down. And for me, it means that even if I don't get a chance to get out the rest of the day and do something, I've got a big chunk of activity under my belt before I've even done anything else. And that's who I am. I walked out this morning and it was starting to rain, and I just thought, oh, well, I'm going to get wet. Hey ho. But it, like I say, activity initially is a choice, but after a while, it's such a habit that you not only just do it, but you start looking and seeing other opportunities. Oh, I can do this, I can do that. I love where I live in the UK. It's very, very flat. We're at sea level. But when I go to the States, it's Colorado, it's at 6,000 feet before you even start. And loads of mountains, hills, all sorts. And I love thinking, oh, I can walk there and I can walk here and I can do this and I can do that. And I start looking for different things that I do. I'm a member of groups based there, and I'm looking all the time for things that people are doing and thinking, oh, right, they sound like a nice group too. I'll catch up with them next time I go. But like I say, I think once you create your active life, you start looking for ways to keep it active. And the more you do, the more you can do. So, yeah, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time, we may well still be hiking. We might not be hiking as far or as fast, but we'll still be hiking.
And
still
I
be
just think
choosing
it
to get
just
out there.
makes you feel good. And I mean, I'll admit, I can sloth like the best of them. I mean, I can have a day here. I mean, I might get up in the morning, go for a walk and come home, make a coffee. I could lie on the bed and read a book for 2 hours. Easy. And I'm not ashamed of doing that anymore. I used to feel really guilty. Now I'm not, because I think that's keeping my brain active. So sometimes it's not just the physical activity, it's actually keeping your brain active as well. And that's another really important. I've just started knitting because I think, well, that's good for your hands and I have to concentrate. So being physically active can be a mental activity as well, which you would know all about that. And yeah, and I think they just go hand in hand. And you look at, you see these lovely old people in their 90s and think, wow, you don't look 90, you're so sprightly. I bet they have an incredibly busy life. They've probably gardened all their life. They've probably knitted. They've probably cooked. They've probably done crosswords. And they've probably done lots of things that keep everything active.
That's it. And it's, in actual fact, there's more and more and more evidence now coming through in research based on, I've just posted one this morning, the fact that creative activities actually, because they work on different neural pathways in our brains, they actually help us with behaviour change, because when you do something new, particularly when it's, not just activity, but when it's something creative, like knitting or jigsaws or drawing or sketching, you're creating new pathways and that wakes your brain up. If you always do the same thing, then your brain kind of gets a bit lazy. Your brain will choose the lazy option usually. But when you do something new, it's kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, this is new. And because it wakes it up, it starts to create a desire to do more. So, things like reading, but things like knitting, things like learning to cook a new style or something, it wakes those little brain cells up and it helps us with everything else that we want to do in life. And that's, that's where, don't think, I often say to people, just because you're sitting down doing something a little bit less physically active doesn't mean it's not activity, doesn't mean it's not valuable, doesn't mean it's not important. So, let yourself read a book, let yourself do some knitting, let yourself be still and focus on your body. But it's that range of stuff that we do, isn't it, that is so important to enjoying life. And I think the more active you are, the more opportunities you grab, the more you come away, like you say, full of gratitude for
I know. And
everything.
And I guess we are very
Absolutely
lucky
everything.
we keep good health. And some people are not as blessed as us. And that breaks my heart too, that, the woman I was working for in America, she's 35, she had a brain aneurysm in December. And when they dropped me off back at Boston, she was going in to have another checkup. And when they were putting the camera up through her main artery, she had a massive stroke. And she's a really fit girl. anyway, so she had a massive stroke down her left side. I just talked to her on the phone yesterday. Because she's such a fit, lovely person, she's actually starting to get feeling in that back. Now, if she wasn't so active, she might not be so lucky. So I reckon the fitter you are, the more active you try and be, must help you to recover from all sorts of things. And I've just had a bout of a cold. Everybody at Outward Bound had colds. And I had a bit of the dull head. And I still kept walking. I went for a run, went for a bike ride. Today I'm as good as gold. And a friend of mine who's been hanging around a bit, she's as crook as a dog. And she doesn't do anything physical. So I'm pretty sure that because I am fairly fit and active, my recovery is so much better as well.
It's and that's such a good point to end on, is the fitter and active you are. We're not saying you won't get these things like colds and coughs and things like that, but when you do, you cope better with them and you recover more quickly. And I'm sure of that. You know, I know for myself, when I haven't been active and I've got something, it's taken me a lot longer to recover. So activity is a huge part, isn't it, of lifestyle. And for those of us who are in our 60s or 70s or 80s or even 50s, what would be your advice?
I missed that first bit. I would just say try and live your best life. We get one body, try and look after it. We don't get a second chance. So it's never too late to start walking, to start cycling, get an e-bike, go down to the pool, do aqua aerobics. Just keep moving. And I think that is the secret. Just keep moving as long as you can, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And yeah, and I love seeing people out, old people out, walking up the street. I love seeing them on their bikes. I just think, and that was one thing that COVID did for New Zealand, because we had such a long lockdown. People unearthed their old, rusty old bikes that were covered in cobwebs and started biking again. They reckon they had the biggest bike sales that they'd had in history, because all of a sudden people rediscovered exercise. And yeah, so my advice would be baby steps. You don't have to plan to run a marathon. You don't have to plan to walk 10 Ks a day. Just be active. If you can walk a little bit further to a shop, walk. Don't try and park right outside a shop. Just keep your body moving, and you'll just find that you have the benefits. Your recovery is so much better, and you just feel so much better in yourself. And also too, it's especially for women, we're never rich enough or thin enough. It helps keep your weight down, and that's a bonus. And then we can have that extra cake.
Yeah, that's it. And actually, when you have an active life, when you do have an active life, it brings a lot of richness into it. So really good. Vicki, thank you so much for chatting. Hopefully we will meet up in April in London, and we can give everybody an update on how the marathon went for you. But like Vicki says, like I say, you are never too old for an active life. So keep listening and keep learning, and let's all get out there and do something. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Vicki, for being my guest, and I will see you all soon. Thank you for listening to Creating Active Lives with me, Sarah Blytho, and my guests. Join me each week for more on how to create and sustain everyday activity, and follow me online at Fitness Career Mentor or Fabulous if you're interested in career development and more on creating active lifestyles.